Hello, everybody. Wow. Is this going to be a big, important video? The overarching concept is that there is just no way that I can be on a Linux without having LXD, the container technology for having little playgrounds so that you don't pollute your main Linux install. Now, the problem is the way I'm running Linux is on a Windows laptop. It's the reality that we have today, that so many of us have to be on Windows, or we end up on Windows, or we buy a laptop and it's pre-installed with Windows and we want to stay compatible with the games we want to purchase, or the peripherals we want to buy, or make our stylus work well on the screen. There's 1,000 reasons we end up on Windows. And that should not keep us from this Linux world where everything appears first for developers. It's a schism between these two worlds, and Microsoft has been bringing them together with the Windows subsystem for Linux. But now there is subsystems for Linux that we need to get running, and I have been trying without success for quite a few videos. And to get an idea, you can go into my blog and you can see the history of it starting somewhere down in here, where I'm just trying to get LXD working under the Microsoft subsystem for Linux. And it's been challenging. So this video is going to be about mostly downgrading from Ubuntu 20.04 to Ubuntu 18.04. Now, these are both what's called long-term service releases. They're both good versions, long-term service releases. And why would I do this? Well, it's because all the documentation I've been finding on this topic really is about Ubuntu 18.04. All the instructions where this works are for this other version, which, as you saw from my icon, is called Bionic Beaver, right? So there's Bionic Beaver and there's Focal Fassa. I'm on Focal Fassa right now. I'm going to go to Bionic Beaver and I'm going to try to get WSL running, the LXD container service. Now, there's other little problems, such as, I only have 13 gigabytes free on my laptop. And when you move, okay, let me go and just cover a few of these things, right? This started out from an entry on a previous blog post where I was like, oh, Charlie Brown, you kicked at the football and missed. When will you try? Stop trying to win the prize. Never. Just don't chase that rabbit forever. Figure out what back off and retry in this case properly means. And I am not alone in wanting this. Others have explored this particular wonderland. Figure out how to walk in their footsteps. And consequently, this video, because walking in their footsteps really means using 18.04 so their documentation works for me. So that's the downgrade. And I want to show you that I'm struggling with how it's okay to just throw out a host machine, right? You understand what I'm saying here? Host machines are host machines. They really shouldn't have much of what's important to you. What's important to you should be, let's hit the pen. Edit and create, draw. So these systems here should not be important to you. What should be important to you should be these systems and GitHub in the cloud. I have to say GitHub because we're going to be talking about a particular site, but honestly, it's really Git with any repo because you can rebuild any machine you want from your repos. And that's what I'm going to be doing, but it's a very painful thing to do. You want to try and minimize that. So in other words, I'm going to be deleting my existing 20.04 along with all its repos of the work, this journal, this very journal you're looking at. During the course of this video, I will stop using this journal because the machine, the computer I'm operating on is going to be gone. And so when you do this, your SSH keys are the biggest issue. Your SSH keys are the biggest issue. Your SSH keys are the biggest issue. Know where your keys are. I have my keychain, literally my physical keychain, sticking in my computer right now. And I've been into this location where I CD'd, I'll clear, and I'm going to CD to tilde home so we can start from there again, right? My print working directory is /home/Ubuntu. Now, if I CD from there into a directory called .ssh, which is better referred to as home/.ssh to make sure you're in the right location, if I did an ls here, you would see 3 files, my files that I use for my various uses. And this location is going to be going away because it's not particularly shared on the Windows side. Maybe it will be in the future as the integration gets better, but I actually typed Explorer, this location, explorer.exe, this location, and that opens the window, and then I dragged these over to my keychain drive, and I have that over here, and I'm just about to eject it so that I can have it safe. Eject. Know where your keys are, people. It physically looks like a real key. When you're doing this type of work, you can completely nuke a host machine. And it doesn't matter because your work is on your Git repositories in the cloud, and every machine is generically the same. You can flow it back in with all your, worker stuff. So, yeah, I've got these locations that I'm working off of, and I already have those loaded here, the 2 principal things that are going to be guiding me, WSL2 plus LXD. Let's have some fun too. And so this person made it work, right? And this person made it work as well, both of them working off of 18.04. So I have very strong indication I'm in good territory. And in fact, I'll just Control-Shift-B, and I'll copy these 2 things to a new folder. I'll just stick them in the favorites bar so I know I can get them again easily. Favorites bar, done. Okay, so they're held here, but this isn't going to go away because this is not an attribute of my machine I'm about to nuke. So let's go nuke that machine. First thing when we nuke that machine, we run my release system to make sure that everything has been moved over to the Git repositories in the cloud, everything that can be. This walks through my directories and pushes everything over to where it belongs. And I do recall that there is one directory which might not be doing that. 2 directories, in fact. So I am going to take a moment right now and do those 2 directories manually. Windows E brings you into Explorer. And then I always have this GitHub shortcut. And I have 2 folders that might not be going up to GitHub right now. So I will copy them to the desktop and then drop them into Documents. Move. Now they're safe. They're safe on my local machine. A couple of things which might not have been moved to the cloud. So it's done. Everything else, all the websites I publish are moved to the cloud. So I quit, I exit, and then I exit out of any other terminal shells that I might actually have. And we have this annoying problem. Windows tab, close out the hard way. Oh, I'll take a look at who's with me, and we'll give you your chat. Oh, hi, Lyra, yay. Hey, Mike. What exactly is LXD? LXD is like Docker. So if you heard of Docker, LXD is the one that the Linux, official Linux has included for doing Playground. It's not even Playground. It's much more serious than Playground. It's like virtual machines, fully running systems that are underneath sort of a parent system. So they're Linux containers. It's the official Linux container system that has become part of the Linux operating system instead of Docker, over Docker. So it lets you have different instances of Linux, where if you're doing things that might nuke your system, in the olden days, we might have used virtual machines, right? So in the olden days, I don't even have my notes here anymore. We're going to switch to Notepad. The great thing about Notepad is LXD is like Docker. Great thing about Notepad is Control Plus works. Oh my God. Do you know how long it took? Do you know how many decades it took for Notepad to get little advances like that? LXD is like Docker, but Linux official. That means LXD is the container system, allowing the words for it. Virtual machine like Linux instances, but better because they are faster and more efficient. Parenthesis, sharing host machines, kernel, i.e. resources. So virtual machines very typically have their own set of all the resources they use, but containers don't. Containers recycle the resources of the host machine. And honestly, it's been around for a long time. It's just popular now. It comes from the chroot command, the Unix chroot command, but is much more user-friendly now. So that's important to know. Okay, fine. I'll make this, give it a name. Temp journal. That's what it is. It's a temp journal. So, I'll put my little notes of what I'm talking about here, but this is going to be so radically. Okay, let me just jump into it. What's going to happen here? Well, first let me put my chat stuff where it belongs. You're welcome. You're welcome. I love your questions and feedback. So we pop out this chat and we move it with Windows tab over to here so that I guess now it's going to be these two things, whereas it was my journal. It's going to have a significantly different look. This is kind of a temporary approach, but it's because of this next step. Oh man, we go into settings, which still can be found easily there under Windows 10. It's not the hunt and peck game of where'd they put settings now, like under Windows 11. And we go into system, which has add remove software, I believe. No, it doesn't. Okay, so add remove software is back here. You'd think I'd know this better. There's apps, add apps and features. Guess what we're going to be deleting? I guess I got to search for it. Ubuntu. Ubuntu 20.04. See that? 8 gigabytes. I need that room for installing 18.04. I am going to uninstall that and hopefully claim back the space. This is nuking my system. If that was running in RAM, if there was stuff still running in the system in memory, that was just a heavy-duty axe-falling maneuver. If I get rid of the search now, It seems like it's not there. I'll go out of settings and I go to my icon, which is supposed to bring up, there it is. There's no distribution with the supplied name. Oh my God, I did it. All right. Alt tab, close that. This is so crazy for me. It's necessary, crazy necessary. It's crazy and it's necessary, so it's crazy necessary. Next step, Windows Store. It's still Windows. There's the Windows Store. The way you get a new Unix these days, a new Linux these days, you go to the Windows Store. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? This is how we get it onto our machine. Now we search for Ubuntu. And we hope that 18.04 is in here. Oh my God, could it not be? 18, there, thank goodness. All right, long-term service release, right? See, this is what we're looking for, and it's the only one being shown, so we choose it. Wait, what? Did I not click the right thing? Ubuntu 18.04. Click it very carefully. There it is, get. And it shouldn't take long. Let's see if there's anything else I need to talk about now. Whew. All right. So, the most important thing after a process like this, there's one single most important thing. Put your keys back in place so that getting your git cloning works and you get your stuff back, right? And what stuff do you want to get back? Well, obviously your vimrc. Obviously, I don't know, obviously to me, but to me it's your vimrc. It's your key work repos, which are Git repositories, which is usually off of GitHub. Not always, but more and more these days. Right? All right, so let's see. Lyra would also like to ask, had not had time to watch your ZFS file system yet, why ZFS file system would be better than the normal WSL Linux file system. Yeah, the best advice I can say is read about it. And I might end up not using it. It depends on how well it works. Things seem to have changed, but ZFS is better because the old Sun Microsystems is generally better at everything than everyone. It's a crazy way to answer it, I understand, but Sun is really that cool. Research Open Solaris, or just Solaris, and ZFS in particular. It was designed for nearly zero compromise. That Z in ZFS could stand for zero compromise. Against data loss. The default stuff isn't. It uses some good stuff. It uses some transact logs. It uses this journaling stuff. So it's better than it used to be. However, ZFS, because of all the stuff that can go wrong with containers, ZFS is just so much more appropriate for containers because all that like losing power, hard power loss kind of stuff that corrupts files is so guarded against. It's so what ZFS is made for. So that answers that. And let's see. Okay, so I could open this now, right? But I don't particularly, I guess I'll open it as a test. It's going to run it through WSL through the wrong interface. See this interface? This is not terminal. This is the old, you know, I guess I would call it DOS prompt. This is the DOS prompt API. And so it's initializing. We will go through this in the DOS prompt. We'll get rid of the store. And we'll make this full screen so you don't have to see my icons. And now I have a chance to use a new username. I think I will. I call this machine Lunderwand normally, and that's going to be picked up from the host, the Windows host these days. So much as it's a host, it's a co-host. But I used to use Ubuntu as my username, but since it's Wonderland, this is going to be who it's Alice who's in Wonderland. It's Dorothy who's in Oz, and we don't want to use Alice. LS. Ellis. I'll go with Ellis. Right? Username Ellis. Ellis. I like it. Ellis at Lunderwand. Ellis. I was just a little wordplay. I can get a little better wordplay. Heal us. Heal us. Heal us. Heal us. Heal us at Lunderwand. See? That was just channeling. I know I type that password a lot. But so what? It doesn't matter. So now it's set up, right? And you can always make yourself root here. It's really easy to promote yourself to root. So these systems are hackable anyway, right? You're a user with user level privileges, which you can tell by the $, but you can always sudo su, promote yourself to super user with the password you gave it. And look, you're root at Lunderwand, and your prompt has gone from the $, to the hash symbol. And you can just exit out of that. That was good practice. Control plus and control minus are not changing that font size. So we can X out of this immediately. And I check if there's questions accumulating. I've got some interesting viewers here. It's really nice that there's some interest here. I know I have even significantly more than that because this interface lies. So keep the questions coming. I will, yeah, you remember me mentioning the data loss topic. Yeah, so what you need to understand is that all these technologies that are decoupled from the real hardware, and I'm trying to use Vim keystrokes here. The Vim keystrokes aren't going to work in Notepad. So that the OS tied truly to the hardware is, special. The OS's tied to virtual machine management layers I guess I want to hard wrap a little, are interchangeable and subject to corruption easily, to flakiness, and more flaky. They're more flaky. Virtual machines and containers are more likely to have things go wrong with them than the OS that's really originally tied to your hardware, which hardly even happens anymore. You don't even see operating systems that are tied to the hardware. After you activate the hypervisor layer, you no longer have real access or insight into the operating system that's working tightly coupled with your hardware. The Windows instance that used to be it is replaced by something in the hypervisor. So all these other operating systems, including the Windows one that's side by side now with Linux, is not really a host operating system anymore. It is a client operating system. It is a virtual machine. We call it virtual machines for lack of any better language, but they're just things running under the management of the hypervisor. The hypervisor comes in at about this layer here. It's like another operating system between the hardware and your client OSs. And similar tricks are used here. These are nearly as privileged as these, which means these aren't as privileged as they used to be. This is just using the kernel of this. And the throwaway nature of these is even more than this, because you want one that at least has your, your master stuff that it takes time to set up. Now we're going to be doing stuff here that takes less time to set up, and we're going to be doing more tries and throwing things out and getting rid of containers, creating new containers. So, all right. So next step is getting it running under these. These aren't going to work anymore. Or maybe they will. Look at that. Oh, yeah, it defaults to, see the backslashes? Microsoft is going backslash, backslash. Your default is gone, so we'll put you back here. So you do function F11. You get your tabs back, go full screen. Even though you have your tabs, you can still go full screen for almost focus mode. Not really, because this stuff is here, this stuff is here, but focus mode enough. And look, Ubuntu 18.04. Can you believe it? I don't like that purple coming up. That bothers me a bit, but there it is. Ubuntu 18.04. Heal us at Lunderwand. And now we can go into settings. Settings will bring up another tab. See, it's another tab. It's sometimes confusing, but it is another tab. And we change our default profile now to 18.04. Save. And I guess I'll just jump right to it. I shouldn't have pulled my keychain out to show it to you, but this is where your keys are. You want to make that instance your new master instance? You need your keys, people. So I'm going to pop the key in, which should cause Windows to automatically open a window here, which is fine. You can see this. I keep a Ubuntu 20.04 instance on my keychain in case I need to install Ubuntu on some piece of hardware. But I made this little location here. And now, so here's some interesting advanced stuff. EXPLORER. Well, actually, let me CD to home. I'm in home. PWD, right? I'm home. Now I can ls-la, see whether I have a .ssh location. I do not. So we mkdir.ssh, and we cd into .ssh. This is some of the most important Linux magic spellcasting stuff you'll need to know in your life, so pay close attention. Now this next command is very much about Windows subsystem for Linux, explorer.exe space dot. That's going to open that location. See this? Remember that key, the place I opened? I didn't go into keys, but there are my keys. Just because you hate the graphical desktop doesn't mean you can't take advantage of it from time to time. Now my keys are in place. We go back to the terminal. I ls in that directory. Remember, I just made this directory. There was nothing in there. I ls in there. There's my keys, folks. Now when I git clone, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get what I want. So next step, cd ... Clear. Make the font bigger. Oh, in that case, go into settings and make sure that under appearance, my font size, theme, language theme, always show 10. No, font size is under default. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. It should inherit it. I don't know why it looked small to me. Now, startup is that. Launch on machine setup. When terminal starts, open tab with the default profile. Launch mode full screen. Everything looks good. Interaction should have this turned on. So I didn't lose my key settings for terminal. This is actually all very good. Probably the only thing I need to do now is the good file hygiene, people. Good file hygiene. I'm going to teach you the one key trick above all tricks. Now, this location should probably be called git, but git creates directories called .git, and you don't want to create confusion. Before Microsoft bought GitHub, I had no problem with this. But from home, remember we're in home, we got there by cd:/. You can confirm it with print working directory. You want to make dir GitHub. Honestly, people, honestly, I swear to you, from home on the Linux side, you want to make dir GitHub. You want to cd into GitHub, and then you want to do your first cloning from there. This is going to be a massive test. If this password challenges me, I did it wrong. There's a chance I did it wrong. There's another place I have keys in another version of my home directory because I was an early adopter of WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux. Let me see if I have questions before I take this step because this is so critical. This is good habits. This is good file system management. This is making sure that in the future, the left hand always knows what the right hand is doing. All right, let's see if you folks have questions. Okay, yeah, so I will just forge ahead here. Deep breath, deep breath. I know that I have a directory called helpers on GitHub. I don't direct people to it much because it's my helpers. It's not your helpers. So these are things that help me. One of the things that helps me is having a vimrc in place. Vimrc would be here. There is no vimrc. This is the one thing I can do to make myself more at home than anything else. If I were to run vim, which is already here, it's good version, everything about it's good, except my vimrc isn't there. I can't start my new journals or whatever. So I quit out of Vim. I go back into GitHub, clear, and I do git clone, git clone, git at GitHub. That means I'm using SSH protocol and not HTTPS protocol. That means I'm not going to be challenged for a password, folks. And it's going to look easy. You're going to be like, how does he do that? And I'm going to be like, well, I just know to use git at GitHub, my username, / my repo. Oh, okay, fine. Could not resolve. Oh, git at github.com. Ah, nice. Look at this. Warning, unprotected private key file. This is great because I copied files around. You understand? This is a profoundly big positive step. You might not think so. This is kind of a showstopper for a lot of people. But when I do this, I do a little success dance because that tells me it's trying to do authentication off of my SSH keys. I'm not even going to tell it to eject them. I'm just going to pull that out and show you again. This makes any Linux system you set up home. Know where your keys are, folks. And sometimes you gotta re-protect them with a better file write permission. So I'll Google that for you. This is the kind of thing that it's okay to tap Google for this next thing. And it's pretty common. Everyone runs into this. Set file permission SSH keys. chmod is the way you do it. You chmod your permissions. It's going to be instructions all over the place. So it's going to be sudo chmod, 600. And I believe I use the same file names as them, so it should be the same command. cd /.ssh ls-la. You know what? I'm going to remove known hosts. I'm going to get my own known hosts file going. It just means I'm going to be challenged a little more on occasion, and I'm going to have to answer yes. But your known host file doesn't really have anything special in it. These have special things in them. These are the special things, your private and public keys. So I have one with that name, and I have one with _Mike. All right, clear. That same clone command I was using before. Oh, I don't want to do it from inside of here. You see, I want to go back to cd And now you can always do ~/GitHub. That was important. See, it's easy to get home. There's no place like home. There's no place like cd ~/. And if your next hierarchy down of organization is something you use the same all the time, if it lives in GitHub, it lives in GitHub, right? If it lives in GitHub, it lives in GitHub. Okay, that's an important enough concept to hit here in the journal. This is file hygiene, file good habits. There's other hygiene file things we'll talk about later, but this is a good fixed file location habits. You'll never wonder where that thing is again. There's no place like ~/GitHub. And you'll notice I can use Notepad just like I use Vim for thinking in my mind. You know, writing is thinking and thinking is writing, and writing is thinking and thinking is writing. You're forcing everything through the vocal center of your neocortex. It's nice to have Vim navigation, but in a pinch you can make do with composition book, friends. Composition books are your friends. I know that makes me odd, but learn to think. So this is thought. There's no place like GitHub. There's nothing like Windows keys to get you confused. All right, so now we get cloned from inside of that location. We find that command that I just had up there and lost. There. Okay, this is the yes I answered. I'm just getting this thing because I deleted known hosts. That's no biggie. Now I do an ls, and this directory that was once empty now has helpers. I get cloned. This new Ubuntu 18.04 shall be just as at home as any other Linux machine I could ever be on by doing cp from where I'm at inside the helpers directory. I'm not inside, but go look inside the helpers directory. I happen to know I keep my vimrc in there, and I can copy that to home. No such file or directory. Maybe I rename it inside of there. Let's take a look. cd helpers ls -la. Don't make a liar out of me. There's my bash profile. That's a good one. I'll be copying that one over. Let me take a look inside of sbin. I doubt I'd put it in there. All right, so clear cd ... fine cd ... You know what's better than having your .vimrc in one place? It's having your vimrc in two places. There's my vimrc. So just when you thought I screwed up and lost my vimrc, you know, it should remind you of the movie Contact. What's better than spending $1 billion on one alien communication device? It's spending $1 billion on two of them. So cp.vimrc, I hope it's my latest. I think I've been putting it in both places. If not, it's not that hard to reproduce stuff. You copy that into home. And now when you type vim, this is going to have my stuff in there. I can try and, I guess, look at a macro. Let's see. Yeah, not found, beginning of journal. That's fine. Okay, speaking of journals, want to see me get my journals back? I'll do a particular one. Hello, does that look familiar? Where did we leave off? Oh, it was somewhere around here. After all this, it may still be a colossal fail, so let the world see you try to kick that football, Charlie Brown. Don't be embarrassed. See, you saw me switch now from that. This is now, okay, let's prove it to you. Clear. I was on 20.04, trust me. LSB release. Ah, man, I always forget this command. LSB underscore release. I think that's the command. Yeah, okay. No LSB modules are available, so we just look for the help. I think it's going to be -all. Yeah, LSB release -all. I am on Ubuntu 18.04. Now, I could turn this video into the attempt to get LXD running, except, oh my God, it's 1:45, and I'm going to have to get back to work. I wanted to make this my lunch video from 12 to 1, so I do have about 15 minutes to work with. So I might stage it for that next step, and I might answer questions with you folks about what I just did and why this is the new way. I could probably use my pen to draw some pictures about how profoundly important what I just did was. I waved my hand around and made no particular hardware instance important at all because I keep stuff in the cloud. And the stuff that's really important, I keep in the cloud in multiple locations, so I have redundancy in the cloud. So the concept here is keep all your eggs in one basket. Wait, what? That sounds like bad advice, Mike. How can you be telling people to keep all your eggs in one basket? Copy that basket all over the place. And that's it, folks. This is the best advice you will receive in your life when it comes to tech. Keep all your eggs in one basket and then copy that basket all over the place. Okay, so what kinds of things is included in keep all your eggs in one basket? Get to know the Unix way. Even though we're on Linux, you need to get to know the Unix way. The Unix way. You'll know your home by ~/. If you don't have a ~/, you're not using the Unix way. Keep all your eggs in one basket. And the next thing there is make all your stuff close to home. Keep all your stuff close to home. And of course, I'm talking about, in this case, GitHub. I would say GitHub there, because if you keep all your stuff close to home, and that home location is, reflective of where you keep it in the cloud, you're always going to know where to keep it in the cloud, folks. And so this gets to the cloud stuff here. I don't need to go through all this. So I'm going to check if you folks have questions, and then I will do any further stuff. I can switch from this journal. See, I can now take all this stuff, copy, go over here, go to the bottom of this entry, insert, paste that, do a keyboard shortcut to go full screen, get back more to a reasonable size, kick it over here so that I can see that. Oh, questions coming in. I'll answer your stuff. Now, you remember how that line wrapping? I was doing line wrapping for Notepad. VIPGQ, there's no problem. I can rewrap hard returns. I don't care. Don't let wrapping of hard returns ever be a sort of barrier to you for, like, you know, text. Don't think that don't think that you should have text wrap turned on in particular. I save it, and you know, I could commit this and push it up to the cloud right now and have it safe again. Let's see your questions. Hi, Mike. So you switched back to Windows 10. I remember you working on Windows 11. Yeah, I'll answer that in a moment. Also, how popular is LXD in the business ecosystem? And then Otto asks, LXD is popular for web hosting. Never saw it in non-hosting enterprises. Okay. So there's a few things to know, right? So there's going to be marketing stuff here. Docker 1. In a lot of places. Docker 1, it's better for your resume. However, Docker is not an official part of Unix. That officialness is actually very important. Okay? So no matter how popular Docker is in the face of LXD, LXD is core knowledge, core Linux knowledge now. Docker isn't. So get Docker on your resume. Learn a little about Docker. Understand that when you get stuff from the Snap store, it's all going to be coming down in Docker. But everywhere else, LXD is the important thing to know because it's easier, it's included, and it's persistent. It's persistent. It's persistent. Things you do in LXD is there the next time you bring it up. Things you do in Docker might not be because you have to layer up these composite layers of patches, and it's, you know, it's geared towards a certain type of way of distributing software. LXD is not about distributing software necessarily. It's about having isolated working environments quickly, easily. It's, you know what it's like? LXD is just like virtual env or env in Python. So anyone who's out there, you know, who uses Python has run into env, virtual env or venv, is just like venv or virtual env. It's just about packaging. You know, it's just about packaging dependencies and keeping playwork from polluting your important main, you know, OS. That's all. That's all. So really don't think of it as like this big fancy thing. I'm putting so much time into it because it's not this big fancy thing. It's just a necessary part of doing business. Just like the way, you know, think about Python without venv or virtual venv or virtual env. It's unthinkable. It's just unthinkable because of the way, you know, there's so many reasons to have different isolated Python environments, your dependencies, your versions of Python, all kinds of things. And it's really just the same with LXD. So no matter how popular Docker is and no matter how much you want it on your resume or whatever, you got to also know LXD. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. Okay, let's see. Yeah, switch back to Windows 10. I've never switched off of Windows 10. I love Windows 10. Until the screen transitions are this smooth on Windows 11, I will remain on Windows 10. I am waiting for this on Windows 11. That's all. You saw me doing it on this other machine. I've got multiple Windows laptops because my wife and I, we try and stay on the same machines. And every once in a while, something goes wrong with one of them, but not so wrong that I can't use it for these purposes. So that's what you see me doing. I'm breaking out old laptops because WSL 2 installs on Windows 11 easily. Not so on Windows 10. So my Pied Piper message of easy WSL install only works if you're on Windows 11. Why? Windows 10 makes you soft installer. Right, so that this approach requires downloading and running a Microsoft installer file. This is a complex command. And this is a complex command. And these are too much for the average user. I don't mean to insult anyone, but you can't really ask people to do all this stuff. Microsoft knows it too. These are, in my mind, the key differences between Windows 11 and Windows 10 that you can do, that you can get these 3 steps to happen kind of automatically by just typing, you know, on Windows 11, you just type WSL, no, it's WSL install. And it does all the above steps. Now, I think there might be a little bit of still doubtfulness in the fact of how LXD is actually part of Linux. What is LXD? LXD is an open source management extension for Linux containers. LXD both improves upon existing LXC features and provides new features. linuxcontainer.org. What is the difference between them? Conclusion: they're both containerization technologies. LXD runs the OS system as a container so that it can utilize the benefits of VM as well as a container, whereas Docker is a lightweight, simplistic container runtime. Okay, but the main thing is the officialness of it. Like, I'm trying to think of examples. These things get wrapped up into the main distro. LXD official. It's going to show the official site, of course. But the important thing is that the Linux governance has chosen LXD as the one to be built in. I don't know. I could search forever, but they decided to build LXD into Linux. It's the same way the hypervisors get built in. The layer, the KVM. That's an important one, KVM. So if you search on KVM, this virtual machine technology, it's kernel-based virtual machine technology. So to make virtual machine technology official, it has to be built in at this low level that can't be done without it being extremely hack-like, unless it's official, unless it's coming through Linus Torvalds and the whole official Linux process. And that is what happened with LXD. LXD went through the same process that KVM did to become part of official Linux. So it's kind of like the debate between, for screen management, tmux versus screen. Everyone talks about tmux, but screen is part of the official GNU command set, which means every Unix or Linux has it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with tmux and screen, they're just ways where if you start running something in a terminal here, and then you X out of the terminal, it normally stops running. But if you're using tmux or screen, it has kind of a in the background terminal server going on so your things can keep running. And a lot of people talk about tmux because it's just, you know, it has good marketing or people like it or whatever. But I use screen because screen is always there. It's you can always rely on it. It's built into the operating system. So LXD, even though it looks like I do have to install some things, LXD, if not today, then in the future, in the near future, is always there. It's generic tech. And this comes up so often. Generic tech, as unsexy as it sounds, is always better than the fad. I know it's a, you know, idiom or whatever, but the fad du jour. The fad of the day, people. This is why Python is better than JavaScript. Huh? But JavaScript is built into web browsers. It's the language of web browsers. Python has replaced Perl in Linux default distros. That's more important than JavaScript in a browser. Because browsers are just one API to humans. And Linux is the API to everything. So folks, Python is the new Unix bash script. Timeless. LXD, timeless. Because it's part of the operating system distribution now. That's the important thing. And I think this is bringing us close to 1 o'clock. So I do suggest that if you have questions, to bring them in now. I haven't had a chance to draw anything yet. Maybe I'll go draw as a last step, and then I'll come back and check for questions. Let me see if there's anything I didn't answer. Yeah, so I'm staying on Windows 10 because of these screen transitions. How can I not? Look how butter smooth, beautiful they are. They just make you feel good about being on this thing. So I'll load ArtRage for a second and show you the hardware, I guess, is green. I like that green for the hardware. That's been working for me really nicely. And after you turn on a hypervisor more and more, we'll use purple because purple is the language of transitions. There is, in fact, an operating system which is fairly low level, but we're going to use the marketing language that gets used for it. In the free and open source world, there's also something called a DOM. Sometimes it's called the DOM here. The open stack thing calls this the DOM. It's an OS. It's an OS. There's no doubt about it. It's an OS. It's just not one you ever see. I will also say in a red, because danger, oh my God, there's another operating system in here that's in a world that nobody really knows about called Minix. If you want to blow your mind, you should probably Google Minix, just so that you understand that there's a backdoor on every piece of hardware since about 2008, whether you're Intel or AMD, and even Apple probably has their own stuff. And then we'll go to white over here. Well, no, we'll go to blue because Windows is always portrayed in blue. And, you know, because of the hypervisor now, that isn't blue. Because of the hypervisor now, Windows is really no more privileged than other operating systems that can live at that level. This is why Windows subsystem for Linux is really a misnomer. And using the technology, and now I'll do white, because using the technology of LXD, you would think it would be this next level up here for virtual machines and stuff, but it's not. It goes here. And they're virtually as privileged as this one here. They inherit a lot of things about this one here. And now your applications, which I guess I'll do in orange, your applications can sit on top of any of these. You can write apps on top of this. You can write apps on top of this. You can write apps on top of this. And it's almost indifferent to the user. What difference does it make? What do you care? You have no idea. Performance-wise, it's about the same, and we'll draw the users up there. Any colors I didn't use, users will be turquoise today. The users interact with the API at this level. There's lots of other APIs in the picture, but apps have their own API, so this tops it off. There's my pretty picture for today. Let's see if you guys have questions, because I'll be wrapping it up because lunch break is over. Yeah? Am I still streaming? Are you folks still there? Yeah, more than ever. Look at that. It's fun. This is fun. This was a fun one to do. Thank you, folks, for the questions to lead me through it. I'll be settling myself now into this new 18.04. I'll be taking my deep breaths, and who knows, maybe I'll broadcast during the workday because I need to do this. This is a dependency for moving forward because I've got a really hotshot guy at work who does all this stuff on, remote cloud servers, and I want to be able to do that here on my machine without polluting, without foobarring this, right? So the whole point is to, and I'll do a layer for this because it's, I guess, kind of important to not screw up these things. Yeah, that's really the point there. It's important to not screw up these things. That would be red for pollution. It's really easy to do stuff. That looks ugly against orange. What will look good against orange? That I haven't used. Red, yes, I've used all these colors. They're all used. They all have meanings. I'll use yellow. Yellow is a nice two-edged sword color. So you want to just be careful against polluting stuff like that. No, it's not the app. You want to be careful about polluting stuff like that. When you do that, you want to be doing it here because you can plug in a new one real easily without the... you saw me do it with the Microsoft Store, right? You saw me do it with the Microsoft Store. I replaced this with the Microsoft Store. I did, in this video, you literally saw me go from Ubuntu 20.04 to 18.04 with the Microsoft Store. That's poetry right there. And I don't want to do that. That's really stupid. It's a stupid way to manage your Linux things. So can I turn these visible or not? Yeah, I poke that. So instead, oh, that layer's hidden. Okay, I do a new one. You want to do it here with LXD commands. With easy CLI commands. Easy CLI commands as opposed to going to the Microsoft Store and getting another instance of Unix. It's just silly. These are smaller. They're smaller, they're fast. There's just so many advantages to that. So That kind of wraps it up real nice. Any other questions before I go away? Yeah, check if I'm still streaming. I am still streaming. This is wonderful. I love this one. Thanks for joining me, and hope to see you again soon. And don't forget to subscribe and thumbs up this video and do the bell and join me for lunches. Join me in the morning. Sometimes I'll do this at night. I think my plan is to have at least 3 time slots per day. 3 time slots. You might catch me. Around 8 a.m. before work. And that's EST, Eastern Standard Time. That's real New York centric to say that's standard. Around 12. I keep making the same typing mistakes. PM, noon, EST, lunch. And, you know, I'm going to try and do one I don't even know. It's like, it could be between 6 p.m. when work lets out to, you know, I've done them in the middle of the night, so wild card. Oh, I got to escape my markdown to wild card. Whenever I'm inspired. So if you want a sure time to try and see if I'm doing it, it's, you know, 8 a.m. or noon. Those are the times I'm really going to try and do this religiously. And then I might pop up anytime between the end of work and midnight. So definitely, I love this process. Love the questions. Thank you. You should tell me, Lyra, at some point the correct pronunciation of your name. I wonder every time. Desktop Chronicles, thank you for your consistently good feedback. And yeah, I can't wait until Windows 11 meets the basic criteria. They make you do a 4-finger swoosh for that left-right movement, and it's just not as smooth. Wow, more people are joining in now. This is like the most concurrent users I've ever had. I can't disconnect. Ask me something. I'll draw another picture for you. I have maybe 10 more minutes, really, before I have to disconnect. And Otto von Bismarck, you teach me great things about history. I'm doing more Wikipedia Instapaper reading because of you. I'm going to follow up more on who the Linux authority is, you know, my knowledge gaps, right? Who is the Linux governance? Linux governance, which is Linux governance. Open governance, so linuxfoundation.org, right? So they have a blog. So it seems to me that the Linux Foundation, this is the organization that companies like Microsoft pay big money to join and have to meet certain criteria. You don't just buy your way into it. So the fact that Microsoft and companies like them are on this foundation doesn't mean that Linux itself has been corrupted. But this is the organization that advises on the development of Linux, and someone somewhere makes the final calls about what becomes official in Linux and what does not. That was the board of directors, technical advisor, fellows, leadership. The leadership team. You would think you'd see Linus front and center on these, but you know, he probably is playing benevolent dictator for life for all, like Guido van Rossum talked about with Python. You don't have to do all the work anymore when a product has become this fabulously large. And maybe we should search on this site for their talk about LXD. ContainerCon, 2016. LXC maybe. You'd think it'd be easier to find if I were asserting something along these lines. So I will find the official word on this for you real soon. Oh, how this goes with the LXD commands. Yeah, that's what it's really all about, right? Computer Chronicles jumps right to what this is about. I plan on getting new Nix commands into my fingers. Anyone who's been around the block a few times knows this concept of getting something into your fingers. That means it's ready to use any moment of your life from now forward. No questions of whether it's there. No questions of how it works or whether it might ever let you down. No, it's now like it's part of your body. And it sounds strange, this stuff, but honestly, people see that in the starting to use VENV or virtual ENV in Python. You really do get it into your fingers. It becomes habit. You just here's how you switch between, different containerized environments, and you just, you're like, move me in here. It's like walking in and out of rooms, and you don't even think. You're in this room, you're in that room, and it's great. Yeah. I am currently learning how to Dockerize Python apps, and I wonder how it compares with LXD. Yeah, that's what it's totally about. I'm going through that. I've decided to not do that with Docker. I'm uniquely positioned in that as an in-house SEO, very happy where I am. And I feel I'm valued there and have some good long-term job security, despite the fact I go over my lunch break with these streams. But it's all about work. It's all about work. I don't have to pander to the resume keywords. I can develop. I can, develop myself. My skills how I like. So specifically what I'm not doing, there's a lot of talk about Docker here, but there's another technology right in the background. And I look at these things, I kick the tires. Kubernetes is the big keyword piece. This piece here is the big resume keyword piece. And there's a lot of people who really like it. There's a lot of people who swear by Kubernetes, but there's a certain kind of heavyweight tech liability, heavyweight tech liability. And that tech liability is both on the actual hardware, even if it's cloud, and in your mind. And in your mind, in your head, in your mind, in your head. You know what I don't do a lot of? I don't do a lot of MySQL, Postgres, Redis, MongoDB, and the list goes on, because Mikey, likey, SQLite. SQLite good, 4 legs bad. I'm just being silly now, but I think you get the idea. There's a lot of tools that can get into your fingers, that can be at your disposal every day, that turn you into kind of a spellcasting wizard. Your magic wand is small and in your pocket, and ready to use all the time. And if it disappears, you get back the magic wand 100 times over by just marshaling the resources in. And you don't have to play cloud stuff. You don't have to do, your local machine takes on more value. You're not even reliant on the cloud when you start thinking like this. So if I go any further, I'm just going to get totally silly and ruin this video with like singing and dancing. So yep, love VENV, by the way. So Desktop Chronicles is alluding to the fact whenever I say this, starting to use VENV or virtual VNV is such an interesting topic. Virtual ENV is not part of the standard library, of the Python standard library. However, all sample documentation uses it. That counts for so much. I know you're not supposed to do bullet points if you just have one, and you're not supposed to do indents, but so what? VENV is now part of the standard library. In other words, they did not adopt of the Python standard library. The Python people did not adopt VENV. Python authorities, Python governance, did not adopt virtual ENV from PyPy, Python Packaging Index. So a lot of things from the Python Packaging Index become adopted as part of the standard library when they become formalized. In this case, the king of the hill, the popular one, was not chosen, and they went with something called VENV. I don't even know the history, whether they build it in-house or if it's an extraction from this, because free and open source, they could do that. Maybe they wanted a smaller footprint or a slightly different API. But the API for VENV is great. I love VENV. I'd be on VENV full time, just like Computer Chronicle says, because it's great. Except all sample code uses virtual ENV. And it's still, and virtual ENV is still actually a dependency of a lot of things. They haven't gotten rid of it. It's kind of like P in the Python pool of tech. So I'm trying to move to VENV. The API is small, the word is shorter, but it's difficult to do because, you know, this other thing that's out there. Yep. Okay, Lyra, that's definitely time for me to wrap up as well. Yeah. And I do have the option. I'm not being forced into Docker. Half the world who's using Docker is going to be forced into it because, you know, it's how to do these things these days. So I'll share my learning experience going to LXD, getting it into my fingers, running things as Linux services and daemons. There's really a lot of stuff. So that last part of the picture here, the thing I'm really excited about doing is I'm going to be running daemons in here. The idea is it's Linux system daemons. What the heck do you mean daemons? It's scheduling. And it's scheduling, and it's scheduling, and it's scheduling. So you can keep things running all the time. But it's really mostly about scheduling tasks, which is an alternative to web dev. You can do web dev with this, but it's a web dev alternative so that not everything that has value in the coding techie world is necessarily web dev. There's lots of other stuff that has great value. Data pipelining stuff this fits in. Stuff that just runs 24/7 on your behalf without it having to have a human making requests of a web server all the time. You know, it's The web servers are genies making a wish. It's just one sort of app. So different types of apps are web dev, which are a lot like genies. And then there's, you know, system services, which are not like genies. They're like, you know, waiters serving you a dish every day. Could be machines on the other side. It's always people on the other side with web development, right? Because you're developing for people. But this could be anything. It could be email, could be alerts, could be anything. It's got broad application. It's not as, you know, much of a kooky alternative to web dev as you would think. You can incorporate system service programming stuff into your life in 1,000 different ways. So that's where we wrap this up. Thanks for all the wonderful feedback and this great video. It sets the stage for some exciting stuff to come. So I'll see you all soon.